Welcome to the Do Life Well podcast. Join your host, Gavin Merwin, and his guests as they explore the nature of doing life well. Now, let's dive in.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Do Life Well podcast. I'm your host, Gavin Merwin, joined with my friend, Mr. John Tanner, who's been on the show before. Thanks for coming back. And we're super excited. Today's episode and next month's episode are going to be a part one, part two. We're just covering the fundamentals of personal finance and sharing a little bit with you guys just about strategies we implement in our own personal lives and just kind of a general, again, doing life well, including this topic of personal finances. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me back. I enjoyed it last time, and I didn't do too bad of a job if you asked me to come back.
That's it.
No, I'm happy to be here, and especially to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So, real excited.
For sure. Just in case they didn't listen to the last episode, give just a quick introduction of yourself and what you do and where you come from.
Yeah, well, I've been in the financial services industry now. This will be my 24th year. And so a long time, and also, you know, in that industry, I had the opportunity to lead a lot of other people, train a lot of other people, and I look back, you know, I was looking on Facebook this week at you know, there's probably been a couple hundred people that I've had a little bit of influence in throughout my career as far as just leading But I've looked at so many people that are still successful in this industry, whether they work with me or work with somebody else, still in the industry, still doing very well, and that's one of the most rewarding parts for me. I love working with individual clients. I love helping people with financial planning and wealth management. But it's also been very, very encouraging to me to be able to bring people into the business, to train them, to raise them up, and then to see, you know, some of them's more successful than I am at this point, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Sure.
And just been, you know, and that's exciting. But, you know, as far as wealth management goes, I work with a company called FI Advisors, and we're an independent firm, and we help, you know, people from all walks of life. Most of my clients now are approaching retirement or are either already retired. But we do, you know, wealth management, and we've gotten real good at it. I feel like we're as good as, you know, I feel like we do a very good job at that. We've done it a long time. We've got a system down, very practical, especially with weeks like we've had, you know, this week where you better have some fundamentals and
sure.
better, you know what you're doing.
That's right.
But in what I do, Gavin, and I may be getting off a little bit, but in what I do, we coach people. That's the bottom line. You know, we don't just invest money. We don't just, you know, try to help people grow, but we coach people. We coach them on a path. We coach them, you know, we help people develop a plan, a strategy, and then we try to help them, coach them along the way to stick to this. Remember where we're headed. These are your goals. These are your dreams. This is where we want to go. And we just want to be a coach and a guide along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And in part two of this, we're going to go into some really practical, technical conversations around that. But really where we wanted to start was just kind of the mindset around a lot of these topics, I think. And, you know, like we always do, we have some topics, but we can just flow and see where it goes. But I guess start with the importance of cash flow. And for someone, you know, it's not always about what you make every year. It matters how much cash you got in the bank to pay bills. And that's obviously very important in a business context. But from a personal level, like, let's talk about, you know, what is cash flow and kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, let's take a step back too and start with mindset, and then kind of ease into cash flow. You know, the scripture says that, and this is so many people get it wrong when we talk about money and we talk about finances. You hear people say money is the root of all evil, but scripture says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Sure.
So what does that mean? It's our attitude. It's our attitude toward finances. It's our mindset toward finance. How you view what you do will determine how you do what you do.
Sure.
and how you view money. A lot of people view money as a tool. A lot of people view money as something that they have to have, but it's evil. They wish they didn't have to. They have a lot of poor mindsets, a lot of misconceptions, and it all boils down to what is your attitude toward money.
Sure.
Do you love money? Because that can be a problem. We all need money. Next to oxygen.
Yeah.
Money is up there in the top 3 or 4 most important things
That's right.
in our life, because you really can't do anything. You can't do many things without money. But money purchases health care. You have a better advantage of living a longer life if you have money to pay for health care or insurance, these different things. So money gives you freedom. Money gives you choices. So I think I know it is. It's very important that we develop a good attitude when it comes to finances.
100%.
It comes to money. Now, why do some people have a good attitude when it comes to money? Why do some people have a poor attitude or a wrong attitude? Let's just call it a wrong attitude. A lot of that has to do with our upbringing, how we were raised, where we grew up, who we grew up with, who we take advice from. That's a huge one, who we take our advice from. I mean, I've made a career out of financial advice, and so all of these things shape our mindset. All of these things shape our attitudes, our view when it comes to money. And I think that's why the scripture says it's our attitudes, or it's our attitudes toward money that can be either good or either bad. Do I have a good attitude when it comes to money, or do I have a bad attitude when it comes to money? And for the listeners, you can kind of gauge that on how do you feel when the topic of money comes up. Does it excite you? You and I, we had a conversation before we even started rolling with a friend of ours, and it was pretty much around money the entire time, and it excites me. I get excited about it because that's I've developed an attitude to where, hey, money's a tool. Money is something that if we treat it right and we can grow it and we can keep a good attitude toward it, it can really be an instrument or a blessing in our lives. So I get excited, but I remember a time, Gavin, when I didn't. I remember a time when if I had to have a conversation when I was first starting out in my early 20s, if I had to have a conversation around money or finances, I would get anxiety.
Yeah.
And I see that with people a lot of times, where when they come into my office or I sit with them at a location outside of the office and we begin to talk about money, I see anxiety start forming.
Yeah.
And so what I realize is, hey, we've got to, before we ever get into investing or this or that, let's address our attitude toward money. Let's begin to see money in the proper light. And that's attitude, and that's mindset. And that has a lot to do with how we approach cash flow.
Yeah.
We've all heard the saying, cash is king, And in business, you've got to have consistent cash flow. But here's the thing about cash flow. It's always flowing, It may not be at the volume you want,
Sure.
And here's where I got it wrong for a lot of years, and I think a lot of people get it wrong, Gavin, is they look at cash flow and they concentrate on volume before they concentrate on direction.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I mean by that. Imagine current, okay? What do we call, what is a dollar? It's currency,
Yeah.
okay? If you go to another country, it's maybe not the dollar, maybe it's the euro, or maybe it's something else, okay? But it's still currency.
Yeah.
So no matter where you're located, where you are, let's talk about currency, okay? That word currency is made up from the word current.
Yeah.
It's like a flow. It's like a current. So imagine yourself standing in a stream and that current is flowing, okay? The most important thing is not the volume of that stream or how much water is flowing. It's the direction of that stream. Is that stream flowing towards you, or is that stream flowing away from you?
Yeah.
This is the first thing that we've got to understand. The direction of that current or that cash flow is more important than the volume. We have to fix the direction first before we can address the volume. Because if you start with volume first, this is making sense the way I'm putting it out?
Yeah.
Okay. If we start with volume first, which most people do, we just need to make more money, make more money, make more money. it does not matter what the volume of that flow is if it's flowing in the wrong direction.
Sure.
If it's flowing away from you, you're not keeping any of it. It's steady flowing away from you. More than likely, the reason it's flowing away from you is because you're focused on where it's going and not where it's coming from.
Sure.
Okay? It's like people that are at work, but they're on the internet trying to plan their next vacation.
Yeah.
Or they're online shopping. They're getting Amazon packages delivered to their house when they need to be building
Sure.
something. You know, and
Sure.
I'm being a little funny with that, but I'm also being serious because you're concentrating so much on where it's going. It's flowing away from you. The word repent in the Bible means to think differently. You know, we've been taught a lot of times it means to turn around or about face. Well, it does, but you have to think differently first. If you turn your thoughts around, you can turn your actions around, but it starts with your thoughts. So if currency, or if the current is flowing away from you, we've got to repent. We've got to change our mindsets. Then that will change our actions, and it'll also change our attitudes toward money.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need cash flow. Cash flow is very important, but the most important thing when it comes to cash flow is the direction over the volume. So we fix the direction first, turn around. Let's focus on where it's coming from. Let's focus on our source. We know our source is God. And He's going to send us all these different things and these different streams. He's our source. We focus on that, and we begin to look at the biblical principles of the things that God says about money and about finances. So, long answer to a simple question that you asked. It took me a while to figure that out. Direction, okay? We all have a certain amount of cash flowing into our lives.
Yeah.
Okay? We want the volume of that to increase.
Sure.
But before that, because see, here's the thing. If we don't fix our direction, if we don't begin to view money correctly, to have the correct attitude, more of a volume, if God was to turn the spigot up, so to speak, on that and give us more, it would actually be harmful to us.
Yeah.
It would actually not serve us well.
Yeah.
But when we begin to view money differently, think about money differently, to repent, to turn around and to begin to focus on the source,
Yeah.
you know, to begin to focus on, okay, now money's coming to me instead of me turning around and money going away from me.
100%.
So look at our lives, you know. Are we people that money just flows away from? You know, no matter how much money we make, do we keep any of it? Do we have good principles? Do we have dreams? Do we have visions? Do we have a plan? Are we headed somewhere? Or are we just trying to make more, and is it still going away from us?
Yeah.
So when you say cash flow, I think direction. Okay. Fix the things in our lives that's causing money to just flow away from us.
Yeah.
And once we get that, then we can focus on the volume.
Yeah.
More. Build. Does that make sense?
Makes tons of sense. And I think a practical way to talk about the direction is the topic of budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we had that down. Personally, you know, I've had lots of thoughts and feelings about it. I don't know what yours are. I do personally use the Rocket Money app. So it's a great app. You link all your accounts, gives you a picture, lets you know your expenses. And for me personally, it's like, I think knowing your numbers are important. That's always been a principle I've been taught. Knowing your numbers, knowing how much debt you have, knowing what your income is, knowing what your big bills are. And that's a tool by which to do that. Personally, I'm not like really rigid or very strict with it as far as sticking to it. Probably should do a better job of that. But as far as understanding the flow, is that a tool you use or you think people should use? If I'm a person just starting out, and I will say this too, talk about this also, because you know, if you're a listener and you're not a business person, you're working for someone, you're getting a W-2, what have you, you may feel like you're not in control of the volume, right? And I would challenge that thinking, because and I've told some folks around the office even, it's find ways to be more valuable. That's how you bring income to yourself. And like, if I'm a person working for someone, it's, if I'm super complicated, if I'm not fun to be around, if I'm not bringing value to the organization, that's probably a way for money to flow away from me. Versus you do have input into what your compensation is, even if you're not a business owner, I guess is my point. by bringing value to an organization, to being easy and simple and fun and those kind of things. A person that looks for problems to solve, brings value, things of that nature. So talk about budgeting, and you can talk about that some too.
Well, so the two things that you mentioned there, okay, you hit on how, to get better at what we do to improve ourselves. All of those things will increase the volume of cash flow.
Yeah.
As you get better at what you do, or let me put it this way, as you create the ability, we all get paid based on value.
Yeah.
Based on value. What value do you give? I don't care what type of industry you're in. Your pay, your check that you get every week, every 2 weeks, every month, how often you get paid, is based on the amount of value that you give, that you produce. So if you want to know where your value is, look at your pay. If you want more pay, create more value.
Yeah.
If you work I don't care if you work at McDonald's,
yeah.
you become more valuable to your manager and you'll get paid more.
That's right.
You become more valuable than your manager, you'll get his job. May not be there, may not be in that industry, be somewhere else.
That's
but and all of those things will increase the volume of that flow. But we have to start with the direction of that flow, and that's where you hit that word budget. Most people do not like to hear the word budget. But budget, here's the misconception around a budget. Budgets are not for broke people, okay? Most broke people will never take the time to create the discipline to run a budget.
Yeah.
Budgets are for people who want to be successful.
Yeah.
You never outgrow a budget, in my opinion. Now, you may not have to be as rigid or as tight, but budgets are for people, in my opinion, budgets are for people who want to be successful.
Yeah.
You mentioned rocket money. This is where the listeners are going to realize there's an age difference here.
Sure.
I use an Excel spreadsheet. Okay.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. It's not fancy. I've got graphs that match it. I had someone a lot smarter than me figure it all out, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet, and still, I know, for the most part, I'm not even going to say that for the most part. I'm saying I'm very, very clear on my numbers. I've got this thing I've said for years and years. You have to know your numbers in order to grow your numbers. You got to know where every one of those little pennies go. For the most part, very close. You have my wife on. We talked about that. She talks about, if you want to be healthy, whether you want to lose weight, maintain weight, or gain weight, it's all based on what numbers.
That's right.
It's all based on the macros, how many fats, how many carbs, how much protein that you get. And she has a saying that I really like, and she says, calories are king, protein's queen. And I think when I hear her talk, I realize what she does and what I do is not a lot different.
Sure.
It's very similar. You got so many calories that you're working with based on your goals. Same way with income. You got so much money that you're working with, okay? You need to know. You need to know how much you're working with and where all those pennies go.
Yeah.
Most people, now I'd say 95% of people have no clue where their money goes.
Yeah.
And if they actually sat down and tracked it, it blows them away. I had no idea I spent so much money at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Had no idea how much money I spent at Starbucks. Well, that's your fault.
That's right.
And again, you're worried about volume when the direction's all messed up, man. The money's flowing away from you.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much money flows to you if you don't keep any of it. That's the problem we can't build, okay? So, yes, I'm a huge proponent of a budget. We've talked, man, you turn the news on. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. I'm not trying to be political, but what do we hear about the United States of America? The deficit, the debt.
That's right.
$36.5 trillion worth of debt. Why? Because we can't balance the budget. Because we're almost at a $2 trillion deficit. That's how we are, and individually, it's a reflection. That's the problem that we're in as a country, not to get political again, and that's the problem we're in mostly as families. We don't have a budget. Why don't we have a budget? Because we don't have a vision. What's the scripture say? Where there's no vision, what? People perish.
Yeah.
That word perish means cast off restraint. It's what budgets are about. It's about restraint. When you have a vision for your future, when you have a plan for your future, when you're clear on where you want to be down the road, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, this is the vision for my life. You know, it's hard to do that at 18 years old to know.
Sure.
But when you get to the point in life where you're considering marriage, not once you've been married 5 years, but when you're considering marriage, you need to start figuring out, well, where do I want to go?
Yeah.
Where do I want to be down the road? And create a vision for your life. And then create a budget that matches that vision.
Yeah.
Because where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. But where there's clear vision, they are willing to restrain themselves in certain areas to reach that vision down the road. And that's what it takes.
That's right.
So where there is a vision, people will restrain themselves. And that's what budget's all about. And it sounds terrible when I say it that way. Well, you got to restrain yourself. It's saying no, Gavin, to things now so that you can say yes to things later.
That's right.
And that's all a budget is. It doesn't mean we can't, enjoy ourselves, can't have fun. Put those vacations in your budget. Determine, can you afford that? You may not can do 3 vacations this year. You may can do 1.
Yeah.
You may have to do simple things this year so that 5 years down the road you can do big things.
That's right.
But that's all a budget is. And if Rocket Money works, I was looking at something on my phone today and I took a little screenshot of it. It's a new app that, a budgeting tool, budgeting app. I do look at these different things. I'm old school with the spreadsheet, just simply because that's just, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But it works for me, And I know people who come into my office and they just have everything written out, whatever works.
That's exactly right.
The main thing is
know your numbers.
Know your numbers, have a vision for where you want to go, and create a budget to get there.
100%. And flow from there into living within your means. Because I think that gets a lot of people in trouble. I mean, the sayings, I don't even know where it started, keeping up with the Joneses. But it's being very aware of living within your means. And I think, too, like the other thing that comes to mind is some of this is relative to the person, right? Because everybody has, in part 2, when we talk some more about investing, we can talk about obviously being aggressive versus conservative and all that. But people in general are that way. What works for one person's lifestyle may not work for another, just in terms of how conservative a person is. What's their comfort level? How much savings do they want to have versus not have? What is, am I a spender by nature or saver by nature? So none of this is like, I guess, line in the sand rules. It's just general guidelines to see what fits for your life. But talk about the importance of living within your means.
Well, you used the statement, keeping up with the Joneses, we've all heard that. We've all heard of the 80-20 rule, okay, or the 80-20 principle. 80% of the wealth in the earth is in the hands of 20%, okay? And if you want to get real granular with that, 80% of that 20% is in the hand of 2%, So do you really want to keep up with the Joneses? Do you really want to be like everybody else? So we as people tend to go with the flow, change with the trends. We have this FOMO, fear of missing out. We want, they went to France. I want to go to France. Or they went, and nothing wrong with going to France, okay? Or they went to Disney twice this year. We didn't go to Disney twice this year. All those things are great. Love France, love Disney. Hey, let's go. Let's have a good time.
Sure.
But why are we doing it? Are we doing it because we don't want to miss out? Are we doing it because we see other people doing it? Again, what is your vision?
Yeah.
What are your goals? Your vision, your goals may be different than their vision and their goals. Your situation may be different. Your cash flow may be different. We have to learn as people to focus on our goals, our dreams, our plans, our world, our finances, and quit focusing so much on what everybody else is doing. Now, that's harder than it's ever been because we have this beautiful, terrible thing called social media.
That's right.
I say beautiful and terrible because it can be beautiful. It can be such an instrument, such a tool. It can be such a blessing. Or it can get you so depressed because it gives you a front row view of the best of everybody else.
That's
right. Everybody puts their best pictures and then they filter them 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
We can actually, I figured out, you can take a filter and you can remove a chin. I mean, you can do whatever you want to. I'm being funny, but you can make things look any way you want them to look.
That's right.
Okay. And when we scroll social media, we see trips and we see this, and oh, she got this new whatever, he got this new handbag, new Lexus, new car, this, that, and the other. But what they do not show is the credit card bill, the credit card statement.
That's
what
right.
they do not show is, oh, well, I bought that with what this should have paid for. Yeah, we went on that vacation that we really couldn't afford, because we're making memories and all these things. I understand all of that. I've lived, listen, guys, when I say these things, I live in the real world, okay? I'm just like everybody else. But again, when you have that vision, when you have those goals, there's times you're going to restrain yourself. And you don't care what other people are doing because you're headed somewhere. And again, the 80-20 principle, do you really want to spend like 80% of the world spends? Do you really want to live like 80% of the way 80% of the world? Or do you want to get yourself into that next category, into the next level, and to really be financially free and really to be financially stable sometimes? Because if you want to be there, you're going to have to do things differently. You can't be different unless you're willing to do things differently. And every first generation millionaire I've ever spoken with, and I know several of them at this point, I've made it a purpose to meet them, to get close to them, and to learn from them, okay? Every one of them, no exception, would tell me we had building years where we had to build, years where we had to say no, years where we had to restrain ourselves, years where our friends and our families were able to do things that we said no to because we wanted to get ourselves to a point where we were financially free.
Yeah.
There's a difference in having fun and being financially free.
Yeah.
I may restrain myself from some things that will bring me some short-term gratification to be able to have long-term freedom. It's the old saying, and I've used it a lot lately. Sometimes it takes some short-term pain, saying no, resisting. I don't want to say eating ramen, but whatever you've got to do to get the debt down, to pay the credit cards off, to restrain yourself in some areas so that in the future, I may not be able to live like the 80% right now, but if I ever want to live like the top 20%, I'm going to have to live differently now.
100%.
Building years are not necessarily fun. Building years, yes, you are going to miss out on some things, but more than FOMO, fear of missing out, I have a fear of never getting to where God's destined me to get to. So I may miss out on some things now so that I can experience some things in the future. So live within your means. Know what those means are.
That's right.
Know your numbers is so very important.
100%. And it's interesting you make the correlation between health and wellness and this topic, because what I'm sitting here thinking is it's like in so many of these areas, it's all, a lot of it comes back to just discipline. And it's like, yeah, sure, I have a goal of what I want to weigh and how much muscle mass I want to have. I can choose to not go to the gym. I can choose to eat sweets and drink Coca-Cola, and there's consequences for that. And
It's
everything,
fun, though.
yeah,
Tastes good.
That's right.
It's momentary gratification, instant momentary gratification.
That's it.
But you pay for it in the end.
That's exactly right. And just how long do you want that process to take? How many times do you want to go around that mountain? You know what I mean? And extend out that process. And obviously, I have down for us to talk about generosity. We can get into some of that. But I think it's important, too, for the context of, we've talked about this, and I think I've even said it on the show, but Bill Johnson made the comment one time of, from a financial perspective, the why behind we want more, right? And he's like, he made the comment, and it just so stuck with me. When you look around and you see such great need, isn't it a little bit selfish to not want more? Mm-hmm. Meaning, sometimes I think when we get into these kind of conversations, a person can have the thought or feeling of like, I'm good where I'm at. I'm happy. I'm going to just do okay. I'm going to be fine. Why does everybody talk about wanting more? And it's like, there's such a need around us to be an impactful people and be generous people, and you can't do that if you're broke. And it's like, how do we get to the point to where we can set our kids up to start on our shoulders and our grandkids and the people around us? And so, I don't know, maybe hit on the why around some of that, and we can kind of talk about generosity and living with open hands and things like that?
Well, if you have kids, you'll understand this and make sense. You want the best for your kids. I can't understand you not wanting your kids to have a better life than you. And it is somewhat selfish to just think about yourself. I believe you should think about yourself. I believe there's seasons in life where you better look out for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about when we talk about budgeting, when we talk about knowing your numbers. It's so that you can grow your personal net worth. Because if you're not free, it's hard for you to help anybody else get free.
That's right.
You got to start with yourself. And I'm definitely not perfect. I think a lot of times the reason I'm qualified to give financial advice is because I've made a lot of mistakes in the past financially. And I may make some more. I'm not saying I'm perfect and I won't make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But when you have a vision and you have a goal, Gavin, and you know where you're going, it's a lot easier to correct things.
Sure.
Okay, I got off track. I know I got off track because I know where I'm going. It's kind of like the GPS. So I know I'm going away from a destination. I've got to make a U-turn. I've got to turn around. I've got to get back on track. So knowing what the destination is or knowing what that vision or that plan is will help you make those corrections when you make those mistakes. So I'm not saying I haven't made mistakes and I don't continue from time to time to make mistakes, but I know how to course correct.
Sure.
When I have a year that didn't quite go the way I planned, I wasn't able to save the way I wanted, or being an entrepreneur, we talked about being entrepreneurs. The best plan in the world is still just a plan. There's no guarantee that it's going to work out just the way you do, and we have to account for those times when we go off track, even if it's not our fault. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's why the plan is so very important. You're not going to get there to the point to where you're able to even be generous if you don't figure your stuff out first and get yourself on that track. See, it's not just me that's counting on me. It's not just my wife and we count on each other. But I know this, a lot of the viewpoints or the attitudes or the mindsets that I had toward money was because of how I was raised. My kids are going to be the same way. I have sat in my office with hundreds and hundreds of people, and we've had these conversations around finances. And when we talk about, how we were brought up, so many people said my parents, some were good with their finances, some have stories where their parents were not good with their finances. But a common thread that I hear is my parents never really taught us a lot.
Yeah.
We never had the conversation around finance. I want that to be different for my kids.
Yeah.
I want to have those conversations. I want to teach them now, hey, we need to save a little bit. We need to give a little bit. And we can keep a little bit.
Yeah.
But, have these conversations. And I can have those conversations with my kids. And to me, that's part of generosity. I can teach them to be generous now so that they have that and that they see that. And I want to be able to manage my finances in a way, grow my finances in a way, so that when they get to those big points in their life, I can help them.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it for them, and I want them to learn some things on their own, but I want to be able to set them up for success. The Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there's so much biblical and spiritual precedence for that, for being generous, And again, I take everything, me, man, I always take everything back to mindset because I think it's so important. Again, how you view what you do will determine how you do what you do. And I think it's so important that we have that proper attitude and that proper mindset. And when you're listening to this, okay, a lot of people, when they see finances and wealth, they don't even want to listen to it because they know it's going to make them feel a certain way. Address it as soon as you can and get to a point where you enjoy talking about finances, where you enjoy learning about finance. I'm in love with learning to read, but I still read books on economics. I still read books on finance. Still read books on investing because I love the topic.
Sure.
I didn't always.
Yeah.
but I do because I've learned to have that attitude. And so, we all know what it's like. I know you're a father. I'm a father. Have you ever stayed up late at night putting something together?
Yeah.
Yeah. Christmas Eve in my house. There's always something. Got all these presents we hear. They're all in these boxes, and I always say every year. And sometimes I do. I'll take something to my office and put it together. And
start ahead of time.
But there's always 3 or 4 things that you wait. Okay. And I read instructions. I'm big on instructions because now you have to. You have to take the instructions out. You take all the pieces out. But the big thing, no matter what it's, I'll just give you an example. Barbie Dream House. I put a Barbie Dream House together 2 Christmas Eves ago, and I didn't think it would be that bad. But it was, you open this box and there's 15 bags and all these pieces. Okay, and then you got the instructions. The instructions took me so far. But the most important thing was to set the box up and look at the picture and say, this is the end result. There's going to be some pain to get there. There's going to be some steps to get there. I'm going to scratch my head. I'm going to do whatever to get there. This is the end result. You got to create that picture in life. That is, to me, the first step, the main thing. Create that picture. It's like a jigsaw puzzle again. I don't know if people do jigsaw puzzles. When we were kids, that was a big thing at my grandmother's house. She'd have a 250, 500 piece jigsaw puzzle and we'd put it together.
Yeah.
We always refer back to that picture, that box. This is the end result. This is the finished product. This is where we're headed.
And I think too, like on that, being okay with the fact that the picture may change along the way.
It's gonna change.
Meaning don't let, fear immobilize you because you don't even know what the picture is. Just build a picture. That way you got something to run after. The picture's going to change. It's
going to change, but it'll be gradual. It won't be a whiplash type response to something. It shouldn't be. Gavin, this is important. I just want to interject. I know you didn't ask, but I want to interject this. The number one reason for marriages to fail is pressure over finances. This drives more couples apart than any other area. You think about this if you're listening. If you're married and you're in a relationship, you don't have a lot of fights. You just fight over the same thing over and over and over again most of the time. Okay, there are exceptions, but most of the time. And I would tell you this, 80% of the time is over finances. Yeah. This is the key. If you figure this out, okay, if you start strengthening this area in your life, it will change so much. Okay, it'll change the way your kids grow up, the environment they're in. It'll change your relationship with your marriage. This is what is so important, though. And going back to that picture of that puzzle we're putting together, or the box of the Barbie Dream House, whatever you're putting together. This is why the picture is so important. You have to make sure that you as a husband or you as a wife, that you and your spouse are looking at the same picture.
That's right.
Because that's what I see so many times, and I've seen it in my marriage in the past. We're putting pictures together, we're getting the pieces together, but the problem is she's putting this picture together and I'm putting this picture together. Yeah. So those dreams, those visions, and those goals, they have to join, just like you joined. You married her, you married him. Guess what? Bring those pictures together. Make sure you're heading in the same direction. You want the same things out of life. This is so important. And I know we wouldn't plan on getting off into marriage, but you just about can't talk about finances without talking about marriage. It's so very important. So make sure you got the picture. Make sure you know what you're doing. You know what you're building. And then bring generosity into that when you can. You can't be generous if you don't have anything left over at the end of the month.
That's right.
Most people run out of money before they run out of month.
Yeah.
But get yourself to a point where you can be generous. And I know a lot of people that listen to this, you may be from different religious or spiritual backgrounds, and you may not necessarily believe in everything the way I believe, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Sowing and reaping is real. You get based on what you give. And no matter what your belief systems are, what type of religion you're in, there is a principle. It's not even a biblical principle. It is a biblical principle, but it goes so much past that. It is a universal law in life. If you sow, you're going to reap. It's very simple. If I stick my hand out, you're probably going to stick your hand out. You're going to shake my hand. That's sowing and reaping. Yeah. If I smile at you, eventually you're going to crack a smile at me.
That's
okay? Right. I can come in mad and angry and all upset, and you're going to sense that energy, and then you're going to probably respond the same way. Sowing and reaping is real. You would never, ever give when you don't get back in return.
That's right.
It's just a principle. It works. It's a universal law. We give, we get. So be generous. Have a goal to be generous. Part of when I sit down and I look at what I want to accomplish this year, again, take it back to diet, take it back to nutrition, take it back to macros. I watched a interview with a bodybuilder. I'm not a bodybuilder. But I'm like anybody else. I see all these, when we scroll Instagram, we get all these reels. And this guy, he said, I knew I wanted to look a certain way, so I put pictures on my walls of how I wanted to look. And that was the vision. That was the box to the jigsaw puzzle, or that was the box to the Barbie dream house that I'm trying to put together. I had to keep that vision in front of me. And to always see. And that allowed me, again, where there's no vision, we cast off restraint. But when we have a vision, okay, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to give myself a realistic time to do that. I believe you need to know the numbers. You're going to have to step on the scale. You're going to have to look down and see that number. You're going to have to know what that number is. This is where I'm at. This is where I'm going.
That's it.
What am I going to do to get there? Am I willing to do what it takes to get me there? That's the big one. I know where I'm going. I know how to get there. Most people can get to that. They know where they want to go. They know how to get there. If you don't know, you can learn. There's education. There's so much. We've never had more education and more information than we do now. You can get about anything you want to get from AI now. ChatGPT, I ask you all kinds of things.
That's it.
And right most of the time. You can figure out how to get there. The big thing, deep down, are you willing to do the things you've got to do to get there?
Yeah.
Are you willing to not eat the donut when you want the donut? Yeah. Man, I like a donut. Ain't nothing wrong with a donut. Especially when the hot side's on.
That's right.
But that donut, if I don't cast off restraint because the vision is so strong, it's going to derail me.
That's right.
But if I just cast off restraint, say no for a while, okay? I'm not going to buy that. Yeah, I'd like to have that, whatever it is, but I'm not going to do it. I like to buy that new car, but if I buy that new car, I know it's going to keep me from this house that I really want.
Yeah.
This, retirement that I really want, We want to take the kids to Greece next week, or we want to go on this Viking cruise and all. That's fine and good. But when I see the Starbucks drive-through, I might have to restrain myself to get me to that vision.
That's right.
Down the road.
100%.
That's a long answer to generosity. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. All of this, though, is so important. And it's like we talked about on the episode you did in the fall about mindset. It all flows from there.
Yeah.
Which is why very intentionally on this topic, we busted up into 2 parts. And the first part that we've been talking about at this point is primarily mindset. So we've got to view it correctly first. And then the second part is going to be on practical tips and okay, I've got my mind right. Now what can I go do to apply those principles and everything? So now I think it's beautiful. Yeah. What else in the vein of part 1, mindsets, anything else you can think of that we should cover?
You said the word discipline, okay? Everything it comes back to developing the proper mindset and then developing the discipline to match that. Okay. One other thing that I want to touch on before we finish, it has to do with mindset, it has to do with discipline, is this belief. Believe in yourself, man. When you look at people that have amassed great amounts of wealth, they've got the direction of the cash flow figured out, and they've got the volume of the cash flow figured out. They're doing better and better and better. When you see someone like that, it should not intimidate you. It should not make you feel inferior, but it should give you hope. It should drive you to say, what is different about them than me?
Yeah.
See, the thing about life is this. If you see one person that is an exception, that's one thing. if you see two people that are exceptions, that's something totally different. But you can look around and you can see so many people that have become successful, that started with nothing, that became successful. You can do the same if you'll believe in yourself. There's not some people are born more talented, some people are born with more skills, but I don't care who you are, you've got something that you do better than most people.
That's right.
Okay? You've got some unique ability. Let's call it a unique ability. Okay? And you've got the ability to learn, you've got the ability to grow, you've got the ability to transition, to adopt a different attitude, to adopt a different mindset. And if it works for somebody else, it'll work for you. So, figure out where you want to go. Figure out what the goal is. Figure out what the dream is. Figure out what the calling is, whatever you want to call it. But figure out what that destination is. Be honest with yourself about where you are. Develop the attitude and the mindset that, hey, I'm going to do what it takes to get there. It's that old saying, where God guides, He provides. God wouldn't give you the dream, give you the desire, if He was not going to give you the tools and the ability to get there. It never ceases to amaze me, but at work we do something. Everybody in the organization that I work with does the same thing. In January we have goals. We write our goals out. This is where we want to get to at the end of 12 months. Okay? That's great. That's important. But then we write out a plan. How are we going to do it? What are the things we're going to do? You know, we talked about earlier before the cameras were rolling. I'm sprinting right now because I want to really hit the year hard. You know, we're going to be, before we know it, we're going to be in the second quarter. Yeah. And I want to really sprint and really get that momentum, because most people, or I'll say everybody's the same. If we can build a certain amount of momentum in January, February, and March, and it might take us really pushing hard, really sprinting, really putting the hammer down, we can create momentum. Yeah. And we can ride that momentum throughout the rest of the year. That's it. John Maxwell calls it the Big Mo process. He says, if you get momentum on your side, nothing can stop you. That's right. So we know where we're going to go. We know what the year's going to look like. And these are the things that we're going to do to get us there. But I got to look at that every day. I've got to remind myself why we're doing this, why we're doing that. And it's simple little things, but most of the time it's small, consistent things. But I can do it. I've got to believe in myself and my ability to do it, first off. And I can do it. If you can do it, I can do it. You know. That's right. And
everybody listening can do it.
Everybody listening can do it. So believe in yourself. God created you unique. God created you special. But more importantly than all those things, He created you in His image, in His likeness. And He gave you the power to create, the power to grow, and the power to be successful.
I love all that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, if you listen to this and you're not full of hope and encouraged, you need some work. Well, that's very encouraging for everybody.
Well, and I'll tell you this, just from my personal life. There is something to say for being overconfident, but I don't think most people have that problem. Yeah. Most people lack confidence in themselves, you know. And when I look back on my life, the years that I really excelled in business and whatever were years I had confidence in myself, and the fact that I was created in the image and likeness of God, and that if I may not know how to do it, but I know what I'm going to do. I'll figure out how I'm going to do it, and I had that confidence. It takes a certain amount of confidence to be successful. So I would tell 90% of the people, don't worry about being overconfident. I mean, we all know those people. They're a little overconfident. You know, you don't have to worry about that. Life will straighten that out for you. That's right. You hit your head enough, you'll learn. But the thing about it is, be confident in yourself. I don't care if your credit's busted. I don't care if you're broke. I don't care. I do care, but I'm just saying, no matter what situation you're in, you can turn it around. I don't care how old you are. You can turn it around. You need confidence.
That's it, 100%. Well, this has been great. Certainly come back next month. We're going to do part 2. where we've got the practicalities of a lot of these topics that we've covered. And so until then, appreciate you coming and joining me. Yeah, for sure. Keep doing life well. Take care, guys.
Thank you for joining us on the Do Life Well podcast, where we explore topics like fatherhood, business, health, wellness, and so much more. With each episode, we aim to inspire and guide you in embracing the art of doing life well. If you found value in today's conversation, please leave us a review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time, continue the journey of doing life well.